What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast, Christmas week edition. So I'm here recording a little bit earlier on a Monday night as I watch the Saints Packers Monday Night Football game getting ready to kick off. Obviously, this week, if you're a parent like I am, no school. My three little angels are all home for the entire week, so content might be a little bit lighter, but definitely had to get at least a market review out to you guys for week 17. Coming off of a good week 16, ended up 2-1-1 in the NFL, 4-1 in the college football playoffs, which was nice. And so a good overall football weekend. There's some spots that I love for week 17, which I will get into in this video with you guys. So I'm looking forward to a really strong finish of the season. We usually finish strong, and I think, man, looking ahead, I love certain angles that we can take, certain spots for teams to make the playoffs, not make the playoffs. We'll get into all that stuff as the video goes on, but I think we have a really solid path laid out in front of us here to have a really strong finish to the season. So, like I said, a 2-1-1. Just some housekeeping before we start and get into the first game. Down in the description, link to the Action Network app. As always, I mentioned in every video, we're partnered with them. I post all my official free picks on the Action app first before I put them in any videos or anything like that. And this is not one of those things where it's like, I lean this, but I didn't actually play it. And no. If I put it on the Action app, which the link is down in the description to download it, it helps us out. We're partnered with them. If I put it on that app, whatever I can get down is going on it. Is going on that play. It's an official bet. I always like that question. People say, but how much are you putting on it? It's not enough to give units, but what are the dollars? Whatever I can get down. That's the real life problem of us when you bet this much. That's the real life problem. This many volume bets, like people always think, oh, it's easy to get. It's not easy. It's whatever you can get down on the game. All right. So check that out down in the description. And also the season pass, which I did get some messages about that over on Instagram. I know some of you watch cross-platform. So the season pass, I'm going to include a link down in the description, which prorates it down. I think it's $69 to finish off the rest of the season and the playoffs with us, college football playoffs, all the way through to the Super Bowl. So that's a pretty good deal. That's down there below as well. All right, first game, we start on Christmas with two excellent games we got on Christmas. So the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was 2.5. KC's now laying 3 at most books. Against Pitt, even with the news that looks like Pickens is a go for this game, total has bumped up based off of that news. Now seeing 44, 43.5, pretty much across the board 44, mostly 44s here. This is one of those games where you just have to question what Casey's playing for, right? They basically have the 1 seed. I think they do officially have the 1 seed locked up in the AFC. Not much going on here. Pitt, obviously, much bigger game for them. You're looking at a very banged up offensive line for Kansas City, which is also something to watch out for. You saw flashes of it, especially at left tackle. You saw flashes of it against Houston, but they just weren't good enough up front to really be able to exploit it for a full 60 minutes. But you know what? Pittsburgh is good enough. If you're talking about a fully healthy defensive front, which it looks like you're going to have for this game with Highsmith and Watt and those guys, they are good enough to take advantage of the injuries on the Chiefs' offensive line for the entirety of the game. This is just one of those things where it's like, can you bet against Mahomes when you get this good of a spread? 2.5. Right now I'm seeing FanDuel with the 2.5 minus 115, minus 3, minus 105. Mahomes with these small numbers, he does a great job winning these games. He does not cover the bigger spreads. Obviously, I can't say this is appealing. To me, the only concern here, which is why I completely am staying off of this game, is just like they have not, there's no reason for them to go all out to try to win this game. And Pitt needs this now with they're battling for the AFC North with Baltimore. Baltimore's got a game at Houston, which we'll talk about next, but Pitt needs this game way more, and Tomlin's been good as a home dog. Chiefs are obviously the better team. If the Chiefs were a full go here, they would need this game more. They would also be a bigger favorite, by the way. So I think the line is, if you're betting Pittsburgh, just remember that is baked in. Their need to win is baked in because you're not getting the best line. So for me, this game is just a full pass. I know it kind of sucks because it's a really great matchup and it's on Christmas. If the Chiefs were still playing for the 1 seed, I'd probably be on them. I wouldn't hate a teaser here with taking Pitt from 2.5 to 8.5 because, like I said, the Chiefs don't really win these games by margin, especially on the road. So I can see you playing this a multitude of ways. I also would kind of lean to the over. I know people think these great defenses, but if Pickens is back, and he has to be back in for this play, I would lean slightly to the over with Russell Wilson and him had a good connection, especially on the long ball. The Chiefs' offense is sneakily getting healthier. Look how they looked against a really good Houston Texans defense. Just to put up 27 points, they're moving the ball well. Pacheco's back and settling in. Hopkins has been settled in now. It's about to be a full go for Kansas City. So I feel like people just forget, they've been meandering through the season, close win, close win. And I think people think that that's like a sell signal on them, but I really just think it's like they're just kind of moseying through the season and they know when to flip the switch. So for me, I have nothing on this game personally. It's a pass. I would lean slightly to Pitt in a teaser, and I would lean over. Let's get to the second game. Late afternoon, Baltimore taking on Houston. The Ravens are now up to -5.5 on the road in this game with a total of 46.5. Very strong, convincing win against Pittsburgh last Saturday by Baltimore. Houston with the loss at Kansas City. The situational spot here sets up beautifully for the Texans, right? Nicely. But I think the loss of Tank Dell is massive. You're now down. Coming into this season, you had Collins, Diggs, Dell. You're now down to one of those guys. Who is going to be the next man that steps up? You saw the Chiefs limit a little bit Joe Mixon on the ground. They have a very good rushing defense. Guess who has one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL? The Baltimore Ravens. I'm not shocked at all that this number was 3. I was gonna play this big at 3, by the way. Ravens -3. Was too late to get it. Line moved on me. It's now 5.5. I love the Ravens in this spot. I think they're the much better team. My power ratings have them far above Houston. I think Houston's defense is solid, but the offense is incredibly weak. It's way below expectations from that they had coming into the season. I think it's a great hammer spot for Baltimore. I just can't do it at the 5.5. You're paying the premium. That's the market high. I would have maybe still done it at 3, 3.5, maybe even 4. It's now gotten too rich for me. I'm going to find a way to play them. Maybe combine the money line with another team in a little parlay. There's a few things you could do. Alt spreads. I'm going to find a way to be on Baltimore because that's the side I want to be on in this game. But at this point, rather just find a way to get them just to win straight up. And don't go crazy about that, by the way. Anybody, listen, I know I speak personally to a ton of pro bettors, guys that do it for a living. They all parlay. If you parlays, there's no such thing as a bet that you never take. When people say, don't parlay, if you win on straight bets, if you are 54, 55% on straight bets, there are opportune times to parlay those. You can actually increase your ROI. And this is the thing that a lot of people miss. It's a common misconception. So I would find a way, and I probably am going to find a way to be on Baltimore in some kind of 2-leg money line parlay. But I really like their side in this game. This is just a numbers thing for me where I can't lay the 5.5, but I do think that they're going to beat the Texans. So that's that. All right. Then over to Thursday, we have a solo Thursday game with the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Chicago Bears. Seahawks laying 3.5 on the road. 43.5 is the total. Seattle, tough loss at home. I was on Minnesota in that game. Ended up getting a push. Kind of was a little, I don't want to say lucky to get the push. I'll take anything that you can get at this point in the season, but Seattle did play well in that game. Minnesota, which we'll get to their game later, they just keep finding ways to squeeze out wins. Very gritty, tough team. And that's a tough place to play. Now, one of the things that I'm interested in this game, now Chicago had a dud again against the Lions. No surprise. They cannot buy a win. They've lost how many games in a row now? It's unbelievable. 9 games in a row they've lost. The thing about this game, though, for me, is 2 things. Number 1, I talked last week about Geno's home road splits. He threw 2 more interceptions in that game against the Vikings. He's now got, I think, 13 picks at home versus like 2 or 3 on the road. I gotta look it up, but much safer for some reason on the road. So that initially makes me look to Seattle. But the second thing here is you gotta be really careful of. This is what I just talked about with Kansas City. With Pittsburgh. Seattle needs the game, and it's priced in. This would never be 3.5 if the Seahawks weren't playing for the division and the Bears had nothing to play for. Historically, guys, the must win to get in, it's always priced in. Historically, it's actually negative ROI to bet these teams, especially across key numbers. So having to lay 3.5 on, and I know the Bears have looked dismal, and I'm not saying to bet the Bears. I'm saying to avoid the Seahawks. Laying 3.5 on the road, even though it's a must-win spot for them, is very tricky in this one, very dangerous, because teams like to play spoiler when they have nothing to play for. And the opposing team, the motivation is priced in. It's always priced in. You don't have an edge on it. So unless you have a matchup edge, a situational edge, you don't have an edge of, well, the Seahawks need the game and the Bears don't. It doesn't matter. This wouldn't be north of 3 if that wasn't the case. So just understand, you still like Seattle, money, like I said, money line parlay maybe with some other team, Baltimore, Seattle maybe. But what I'm saying is just be aware of it. You can still bet the 3.5 and they may still cover it, but just be aware that you are paying it is in there. So that makes me pass. I have nothing on this game. Over to Saturday, the Chargers are taking on the Patriots. This line was -5.5 for LA. It's now down to 4, 4.5 at some books, and the total is at 42.5. I actually lean pretty strongly. I haven't played it yet, but I might end up on the over in this game, over 42.5. Actually, there's a 42 at Bet Rivers right now, and at Caesars, 42 -110. I like that. Two teams that I think are, number one, overrated defensively and are going to just be slinging it. Listen, we've seen this now over the last few years in the NFL. Even the seasons where the unders were very strong. Unders have kind of gone away this year. They haven't been as strong as they've been in the past. Offenses have started to make a comeback. And that's correlated, by the way, with all the favorites covering, which, we talked about in last week's episode, how home dogs are not doing well. They're not doing well because scoring is up. It's all correlated. So scoring being up and teams, we've seen a tendency of teams, especially late in the season, right? This is a non-divisional game. One team needs it. The other team doesn't. But we've seen teams, they're not going to go out. Like the Chargers are not going to leave their season in the hands of Gus Edwards. They are going to sling the ball in this game. They're going to put it in Justin Herbert's hands to win the game. The Patriots are playing with their quarterback of the future, and they want him to get as many reps in as possible. So they're not going to live handing the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson, and they're probably going to be playing from behind in this game. So I really like the over in games like this. This game sets up really well. I've already handicapped this, vetted it. I think it's a good over spot, and I'll probably end up playing it at 42. If I can get 42 -110, which is available right now in the market, I like the over. The second game on Saturday is the Denver Broncos taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. All right. Cincy -3, juiced a little bit at -115 right now. 3.5 has popped up at DraftKings. Total is sitting at 50 or 49.5, depending on where you look. This is a spot where I really like the Bengals. This is one of the games that I have moved on. I took Cincy -3, -110. It'll probably go up on the Action app. But you're seeing it here first. So I think this sets up perfectly. And like I said, yes, it's a game that Cincinnati needs. So of course that's accounted for. But at 3, I like this. You're not going across the key number. And I also like it regardless, by the way, because they're such a high-powered offense. I don't want to lay points with teams that can't win by margin. The Bengals are the definition of a team that can win by margin. You saw that last week, how they beat up on the Browns. I know it was DTR, and this is going to be Bo Nix, but similar matchup where the Bengals should be able to pull away, in my opinion, in this game. I thought last week the Broncos, I mentioned in that game, were overrated, but I played them in a 2-leg teaser up to 8.5. Barely got the cover. I still think they're wildly overrated. The defense is overrated. They haven't faced many tough. Man, this is going to be the toughest by far. And they've played Kansas City. They played Tampa. They haven't faced an offense like this yet. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals clear the 30, 35, 40 points in the 38, 37 points in this game easily. And their defense has been much maligned this year, but they have faced a brutal schedule of opposing quarterbacks. So while their defense isn't good, it's certainly not the worst in the league, in my opinion. And my power rating suggests that. My metrics suggest that. I've got this number at 4 personally, so I still saw value at 3, even with the fact that the Bengals need it. But the Broncos need this game too, so it kind of washes out. But I really like Cincy in the spot. Now, as I expected, the line is up on the move. I would still play this at 3, -3, -115. If you can get -3.5 even money, I like that. Because remember, it's not just the line that matters; it's the price that you get the line at. So -3.5 even money, I would still play it. And I just think it's gonna be a 10+ point win for the Bengals. And it's going to set up a final game of the season where Bengals have, I believe it's the Steelers and the Broncos have the Chiefs. 2 divisional games. One if they, win to get in, basically. That'll be a lot of fun. Final game on Saturday, the Arizona Cardinals taking on the LA Rams. LA now -6 in this game. 48.5 is the total. Listen, the Rams just covered against the Jets. Prior to that, they covered against the 49ers outright. Prior to that, outright against the Buffalo Bills. Prior to that, covered on the road against the Saints. But I got to say, aside from the Bills game, the other 3 were not impressive. And that Bills game was at home, like this one will be. But Arizona is just one of these teams, man. They are not so great. Their season's over. They're not very good. But Kyler Murray, as ridiculously annoying as he can be with some of the boneheaded plays he makes, he's good as a dog. He has a great ATS record as a dog, and you're getting 6. Well, to open up the season, they were 6-point dogs against Buffalo, 6.5-point dogs against Buffalo. They covered that spread. The one thing about Arizona is they play well from behind because they're high variance, and he can turn busted plays into big chunk gains, explosive plays. So to me, situationally, the Rams it's priced in. -6, it's priced in here. The Rams are priced in their need to win this game. But also remember that the Rams have the Seahawks next week, which will set up as basically whoever wins that game wins a division. So, even if they lose this game, it's not the end of the world. They obviously want to get it. But Arizona just sets up as this like scrappy spoiler team, the 6-point dog that you don't see coming, and they pull off I've seen it so many times. The 6-point dog is more dangerous in the NFL than the 7-point dog. There's psychology behind that. There's metrics. There's data to back that up, 20 plus years of data, where the 6-point dog is actually the most profitable dog. Maybe because it's just below the key number of 7. So a lot of people hammer the favorite thinking I just need to win by a touchdown. And then you know the deal. I would watch out for Arizona in this game. I would slightly lean to them getting 6. If the Rams get bought up, I would look to play them at 7. But as of right now, no bet. All right, on to Sunday. The Colts taking on the Giants. I got nothing. I'm sorry, guys. Colts laying -7.5, laying 7.5 against the Giants. I mean, the only question to me in this game, there's a 40 posted. There was a 40 last week for Atlanta taking on the Giants. Got bought up to like 43, I think, by kickoff. Went over because Drew Lock gave him 2 pick sixes. The Colts sit in that zone, cover 3, very stingy with that. They don't get out of it. Could easily see some picks being thrown here by Drew Lock again. Short fields. How do they stop the rushing attack? Richardson plus Taylor. Even though the defense isn't great, and you saw that against the Titans, 30 points against Mason Rudolph. But they can score. Then they can run the ball really well. Explosive on the ground. I would lean slightly to the over. And there's no way I could lay 7.5 points with Indianapolis on the road. No shot. So even though the Giants are horrific, I wouldn't touch it. But I would slightly lean to the over in this game. Okay, Las Vegas taking on New Orleans. What a barn burner. All right, total's 40. Saints laying 2 at home in this game. 2 teams with nothing to play for. There's really nothing here for me. The Raiders just got to win. If anything, here, Saints are playing right now Monday Night Football, so I can't really say what's going to happen, what spot they're going to be in coming off of that. But there's just no reason to bet this game. The only way I would say look at this game is if you want to tease Vegas up and say their defense is going to, it's going to either be Hainer or Rattler on the other side, whoever the hell they're starting. I think Carr's done, shut down for the year. So whoever wins this game is probably not winning by margin. Take that for what you will. At this point, honestly, I would favor the quarterback situation that the Raiders have over what the Saints have going on. So, Vegas, a good teaser option maybe, but this is not one of those where I'd like run to bet it. It's a big fat pass for me. Tennessee at Jacksonville. Titans getting 1 point on the road against the Jags. Totals at 41 in this game. This is another one of those games where, it is Mac Jones versus Mason Rudolph. If this bumps up to 1.5 for Jacksonville or 2, look to tease. This is one of those flip games, right? Like let's say this line were to flip and it was Tennessee -1.5. Tease Jacksonville to 7.5. If it's Jacksonville -1.5, tease Tennessee to 7.5. It's just a divisional game. It's going to be back and forth. I could see it being like what we saw with the Titans Colts this past weekend, except a little bit more closer, not so one-sided. But 41, man. Again, like I said, these teams, they're going to be throwing the ball. They want to see what these quarterbacks got going into the next season. These totals are low. I don't like 41. I would lean over. The Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills. Jets are a 10-point dog. This is the only double-digit dog of the week. 10 points on the road in Buffalo. Total 46.5. Just like last week, guys, with the Patriots catching the 14, this sets up to be a Jet spot once again. The Bills have the division locked up. The Bills can't win the 1 seed. The Bills just need to finish out the season and stay healthy and go right into the playoffs. Obviously seeding matters to, getting this 2 seed, whatever, but I can see the Jets keeping this close. The Jets offense has been okay as of late. The defense is in shambles though. You saw what Buffalo did last week, came out very slow against it, went lollygag through most of that game, turned it on, flipped the switch when they needed touchdowns. I could see something very similar happening here where maybe the Bills win by like 7 or 8 because they just get a touchdown late. And, I don't know, high variance game. Jets could get blown out. The Jets could keep it close. It's just these types of games late in the season you need to be really careful with. Like, I'm giving you the spots that I'm strong on, like that over with the Chargers, the Bengals -3. Like, these are the spots that I want to look at. A game like this and a game like Tennessee, Jacksonville, Vegas, like, you don't want to touch these games. They're very, very shaky. Unless you have a situational, a revenge angle, some kind of travel spot you want to play on. Other than that, these are high variance games where any outcome, there's always like, what's the most likely outcome? But it's very even with these types of games. Like, you see a 20-point win could happen, a 10-point win, a 3-point win. It's just very, very, very way more difficult. Betting is already difficult to predict games. And then you add on top of this, if when two teams have nothing to play for, you don't know what they're going to whip out. They're going to throw out the kitchen sink. It's a pass. Carolina at Tampa Bay. The Panthers are +8 on the road with a total of 49.5. This is a spot where I would lean to the Panthers. They've been playing really well. Of course, 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys, the 1 week I bet the Panthers when they're a favorite, they shit the bed. They come back this week and they win the game outright as 5-point dogs at home against Arizona, right? Like, of course, when I lay off of them. But this is, again, I said it in last week's video where in hindsight, I would have stayed off of that game because the role change is kind of what got to them. But now they're in a familiar role. They know how to play as the dog. They're an 8-point dog, a divisional dog. They were a 6-point dog at home against, against Tampa Bay. So this is telling you that the market has adjusted them up. But at the same time, Tampa needs the game, obviously, especially with the loss last night against Dallas. But to me, I think this game goes very similarly to what you saw in their first game back in Carolina, which went to overtime, and the Bucs win it by 3. Panthers should have won the game, but the Bucs win it by 3. I think very similar spot here. I think this game comes out to the last possession. If you got 8 in your pocket, you're going to be safe. I like Carolina in this game getting the 8, and I may even fire on it. Dallas taking on Philadelphia, 9.5-point dogs on the road in Philly. Totals at 43. Dallas just won outright as a dog. Philly just lost outright as a favorite on the road, but Jalen Hurts obviously got hurt for this game. But if he's back, this is your classic zigzag, right? The team wins big, gets a big win as a home dog, has now won a couple games in a row as dogs outright. Then they go on the road against the superior opponent and they just get trounced. The first time they played, they got trounced. The game was never close. So, it sets up as maybe a Philly spot. But again, this number is so big. The backdoor will be open for Cooper Rush. He's actually been throwing the ball much better than I expected. Their offense, by the metrics, is still pretty bad. But when you watch him play, he's not horrific, right? Like, if he sees a chance, he takes it. He's confident in the pocket. They're just not very good. But the defense is really trending up. Now that they got Parsons back, now that they have Bland back, who made a huge play in that game last night. Now that these guys are back, even with the loss of Overshown, the defense is really on the upswing and they're playing very well. They're getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. The one thing here is, does Philly just run the ball all over them and control the game clock the entire time? It's definitely possible. So again, kind of a little high variance spot. 43, I would once again lean over. You're starting to see like when offense is coming back, it usually takes a little bit of time for the books to adjust. So when you see these 40s, 41s, 43s, I'd lean over on these games. All right, next one up, the Dolphins are taking on the Cleveland Browns. Miami laying 6.5 on the road with a total of 40. Listen, it's Tua versus DTR. The only question here, it's clear Miami can win this game going away, 14+. The only question is the Tua on the road in the cold against a pretty good defense. I mean, the Browns still have a good pass rush, one of the top pressure rates in the NFL. They can certainly keep themselves in the game. The only thing is, like, can DTR do anything? Now, his first start was on the road against the Bengals, and it was rough. He threw 2 picks. So the question here is just, does being at home make him a bit more comfortable, settle them down a little bit offensively? Can they get anything going in the air, on the ground? The Dolphins played a really tough game against San Francisco, got the win. That was our only loss. I had the 49ers on Sunday. So for me, it's just that question. But again, it's a question I'm not interested in answering this week. Holiday week, it's like, you got to pick the spots where there's really you see an edge and two teams that have high motivation to give it their all, because Cleveland doesn't have, DTR has motivation, but the team doesn't. The Dolphins are playing for nothing. They may just want to win this game. Winning by margin is a whole separate issue, because picking the winners is not that difficult. Picking who covers is difficult. So, laying 6.5 on the road with a quarterback that has been very prone to bad games outdoors, on the road, in the cold. He's going to be in Cleveland. Tough spot. I would slightly lean to the home dog in this one, but nah, it's no way I'm playing it. Here's a game that I am playing. The Packers are taking on the Minnesota Vikings with a total of 48.5. And Green Bay is now down to a 1-point dog on the road. I grabbed this, guys, at Packers +2. I love this spot for Green Bay. The Vikings have now won, 8, 9 games in a row, something insane. This game, guys, reminds me so much. I came on here 2 weeks ago with that Bills-Lions game. And I said, man, the Lions are playing unsustainably. These wins are racking up. Close calls, playing with fire, fluky. This game sets up to me exactly like that game. The Vikings continuously squeezing out, other than that Bears game recently, continuously squeezing out wins. The close comeback win against Arizona, the comeback 3-point win on Sunday against the Vikings, continuously pulling out these games. And now they go home. Have a very long winning streak. They're in it for the division. And then in come the Packers, explosive, high-powered offense indoors. We talked about all of this with the angle, with the Bills against the Lions, and they won outright. I took the 2 with Green Bay. I think they win this game outright. I think their offense is going to have a big day, even against that. Jordan Love is very good against the blitz. He's great throwing on the run, great play action. This is all of the stuff that can counter the blitz packages that Minnesota puts out there on the field. Everything you want to combat that, the Packers do really well, and run the ball really well with Josh Jacobs as well, which is another counter to that also, to keep those linebackers honest in the middle of the field. I love this matchup, and I love the spot for Green Bay. I love the fact that they got their doors blown off in the first game, in the first half, but before coming all the way back and then losing that game by 2. I think they go in there and they win this game. So I'm all over Green Bay this week. All right. Sunday Night Football, the Falcons taking on the Washington Commanders. Washington laying 4 on the road with a total of 47. They got a huge win as a home dog in the division against Philly yesterday. Obviously, Hurts missed most of that game with I guess what it was, a concussion. But Washington still had to come back against Kenny Pickett. Game-winning drive with a few seconds left. Great play by Jaden Daniels. But you know what? I'm going to go the other way on this. I kind of like Atlanta here. I liked it better at 5. It's now at 4. But I just think I liked what I saw from Penix, man, starting that game against the Giants. Now, he wasn't amazing. He didn't blow you away, but he was cool, calm, collected. He made the throws he had to make. No panic in him. No pressure didn't get to him. Solid game overall. Yes, they get the 2 pick sixes. Yes, I understand. But also, they had a touchdown. He threw a dot to Kyle Pitts. Touchdown right there. And he just bobbles it out. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him. Bobbles the ball and turns into a pick. So if you're going to play the angle of like, hey, well, they got 2 pick sixes. Well, they got a touchdown taken away too. But Kyle Pitts dropped the ball. He literally hit him in the chest. So I think no matter which way, there was fluky plays on both sides. But at the end of the day, the Falcons offense looked so much better with Penix than it did with Cousins that I don't think I'm ready to downgrade them. Like, in my ratings, I have Washington a point better. So adjust for home field, I'd make this like a 3-point spread. So the fact that it was 5, to me, I think the market's adjusted Atlanta too far down. I don't think there's any drop-off. I mean, the only drop-off with Cousins to Penix is the experience, but arm strength, accuracy, there's no drop-off. It's actually better. So for me, I don't downgrade Atlanta too much. I make this a 3-point spread. I like the Falcons getting the points. And we're going to finish it off with Monday Night Football. The Lions taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Detroit laying 3.5 on the road with a total of 51. And I like the Lions in this spot to keep it short and sweet. Guys, remember back in like week 4, the Lions versus Cowboys game, I think it was. So the week prior to that, week 3, we had our first max bet. It was the Ravens against the Cowboys in Dallas. They were a pick, -110. How crazy is that looking back? And they blew them out, right? And the Dallas came back late, but the Ravens won. Then the next week, I hammered Detroit again, laying 3 in Dallas, and they annihilated them. Why did they do that? Why did the Lions do that? Remember that? They were up by like 30 points, and they were still doing trick plays, play action, throwing ball. Why did they do that? They did that because they remembered the Dan Skipper game from last season, where they could have beat the Cowboys. There was a controversy with the referee. He didn't declare himself eligible. They negate the play. You remember the whole thing. If not, look up the Dan Skipper game. So they held on to that for a full season, off season, and then went into Dallas and annihilated them. This is going to be the same exact thing. They've been holding on to this for even longer. The fact that the Niners came all the way back against them. They had a big lead in San Francisco in the NFC Championship game last year. Niners come all the way back, win the game. It was such a defeating, brutal loss for the Lions. They should have been in the Super Bowl. Brutal loss. I can guarantee you, this is such a Dan Campbell spot. I can guarantee you this game is on their mind. That game is on their mind. And I can guarantee you they've had this game circled. And by the way, it only helps that the Niners are a dead team with nothing to play for and completely gassed out. They look exhausted offensively. They look like they don't want to be on the field, banged up, no running back. The Lions are going to go in there and they are not. They are going to, I think the Niners are like, health-wise, they're like 60, 55%. Energy level looks to me 60, 70%. They're not fully bought in for this. Season's over. They might even rest guys. And I think the Lions are going in at 200% mentally to destroy them in this game. They see a wounded opponent, a team they don't like. They remember what happened, and they're going to go in. I think they're going to blow their doors off. So I like the Lions -3.5. And by the way, for those reasons, I would lean slightly over as well. Because remember, the Lions still have their defensive injuries and their defensive problems. So I would lean to the over 51 as well. But definitely the Detroit -3.5, one of my favorite bets of the week. All right, guys, that'll do it for this week's show. I know it was a little bit short, but like I said, holiday week. I hope, whatever you guys celebrate, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I hope your bets go really well. Just let's do a quick recap. Sorry doing that. So let's go from the top. Baltimore. So here I'm just going to give you the strongest spots. If you want the TLDR, Baltimore for me, the Chargers over, Cincinnati. Then we got to skip a bunch of games I didn't like. Carolina, Green Bay, Atlanta, Detroit. So there's 7 angles that I think you can play on here this week in the NFL. Thanks, guys, for watching. Grab the Action app down in the description to get the free plays that I release. Once I officially fire on them, they go up on the app and you can tail them with me. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and stuff because I'll have more content coming up right after the Christmas holiday. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next week. Let's get it.